Hey guys, it's with a heavy heart that I announce that the the first James Bond, Mr. Sean Connery, has sadly passed away. Yeah, he passed away peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by family. Um, it's it's just I couldn't believe it. It just it hit me really hard, especially since I'm a big Bond fan and I like Sean Connery, not just for James Bond, but for his other roles. But it was horrible to hear the news. I had just woken up today and I had gone online to check the regular news as I always do, and I found the article, and it was like, it's impossible. There's no way he could have passed away. I knew he was getting up there in years, but I didn't think he was that old. But it's just, I was so just I was just so shocked, and I'm still trying to get over it myself. And my thoughts go out to his family, especially because it's it's going to be difficult for them, I think, especially since, well, they don't have their dad around, and it. I feel like the world has lost not just an actor but an icon. And one of the things that really made Sean Connery who he was how suave he was, how sophisticated, and just it was just the way he carried himself. And I didn't know this at the time, but um, he actually joined the British Navy. But 3 years later, he was medically discharged, and that joining any military branch is just that requires a lot of courage. So massive respect to him. But I think I liked he was so I'm sorry I'm studying my words here, but just I really enjoyed his films. I especially enjoyed You Only Live Twice. That's probably my favorite out of the Connery era. And I liked Goldfinger because, well, it's probably the best out of the Connery era. I liked Thunderball. Doctor No and From Russia with Love are the only two I haven't fully watched from beginning to end, but they're still great films. And if I had to cite any of the Bond girls from that era, sorry, as the best, I would probably pick Honey Rider because she's just that iconic, and, well, she was the first, so there's that. And there's a lot of other films that he was, well, he played a massive role in. Like, well, I knew he was in Hunt for Red October, but I had never seen the movie, so I didn't know the whole context behind the story. But he was really good in that. He was in A Bridge Too Far, and there's something about that film and the way Connery portrayed this guy who's leading the charge of an operation that was, like, thrown together in 7 days. All the logistics were together in 7 days, and he barely manages to come out of it. It just says something amazing about him. And that's not to mention also he was the father of Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. And that film is actually my personal favorite out of the three Indiana Jones films. I don't count Kingdom of Crystal Skull for obvious reasons, but the fact that they were able to play off the whole idea of Indy's dad, and like how he's kind of silly, and I mean, Connery could do silly, but it's just not something he's known for. He's more known for a witty pun or being suave and sophisticated. But he he just he was just I liked him, and I really liked him in Last Crusade. And when the guy shoots him, and the only way to save him is for Harrison Ford to go through the trials or the test of faith. You really feel like you basically it's like someone you know is on the verge of death, and you would do almost anything to save them. And that's how I felt. And that was just, it was such a good film. And then there's also The Rock. And The Rock is so good, too. It's a really good movie. Because, well, Connery's performance has always been good. Now that I think about it, there's never been a quote-unquote bad Connery movie. But that's the subject for another debate. Or another video. That's just, I don't want to talk about that. And just, yeah, The Rock, he was the character that he was ironically a British agent who was caught by the Americans for stealing secrets, and he was thrown in prison for the last 50 years, I think, or something. But he also was the one who he was one of the very few people to actually escape Alcatraz alive, which is crazy. And the fact that he plays off of Nicolas Cage, his character, who is this geeky FBI chemical agent guy who's never fired a gun, never been in an actual combat situation, and he basically says you can't hesitate when you're about to kill somebody, because if you hesitate, you're dead. And then when he had the scene where Nicolas Cage is trying to open up the missile and take out the chemical stuff, that's Cage in his element, and it's Connery who's terrified, and it's so subtle, but it's just, it works somehow. And that's basically, and when he and Ed Harris actually talk, like, face to face, like, Connery's just quoting stuff. I think it's Thomas Jefferson, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but he's just, he was such a good, it was such a good time for him. And then when the Life Achievement Awards, Harrison Ford, Mike Myers of all people, who did that little Scottish dance on the stage, and he was wearing a kilt. And yes, Michael Myers he has Scottish roots, so it's not taken as a joke, but it was pretty funny to see him do that. And Pierce Brosnan, the current Bond at the time, he actually talks about how he was filming The World Is Not Enough, one of the stunts, and he goes back to his car, and there's the man himself, Sean Connery, and he tells him, do your best, put your all into it, and you'll come out on top every time. Or I think that's how it went. I'll link the actual speech in the comments. But it was so amazing to see a previous Bond interact with the current Bond and just give him, like, tips on how to, like, make the performance his own. And if there's one moment that really defines Connery as James Bond, it was definitely the part where in Goldfinger, when he and Q are talking, and Q is played by Desmond Llewellyn, who is probably the best Q, because there's no other better Q. It's not subject of debate. And they're talking about the car, and Connery's just making jokes like, what was it? The radar joke. And then Q is talking about the ejector seat, and he pulls out the switch on the stick shift, and he says there's a little red button. Whatever you do, don't push it. And Connery says, why not? Because you'll release a certain section of the roof and fire an ejector seat. And Connery's like, "You must be joking," and Q says, "I never joke about my work, 007," and they actually gave that a line similar to that to John Cleese in Die Another Day, believe it or not, where he's demonstrating the invisible car effect, and Brosnan says, "You must be joking," and Cleese says, "As I learned from my predecessor, I never joke about my work." That is how influential Connery is as Bond, because if they were able to do that, it just mind blown. So anyway, this video has been taking too long, so I'm just gonna quickly wrap it up. So if Connery is actually up there, hopefully there's a vodka martini, shaken not stirred, waiting for him, and hopefully he can rest knowing his legacy will still be there and will be appreciated for many generations to come. So may you rest in peace, Sir Sean Connery, and thank you for giving us the film series of a lifetime.